Hey, what's up guys? Kevin here with Derby Coffee Roasters, and today I wanted to tell you a story. So, story time. What is this story about? You know, it is late July 2020. We're deep in the midst of quarantine thanks to COVID-19. It's been a while since I've put out a video. I keep watching the last video that I put out, or actually 2 videos ago, of the Quality Fortis roast along. And apparently that was super helpful for the roasting community. And so I really wanted to keep putting out content because the feedback that I got from you guys was outstanding. I didn't know that it would be such a help. And so I figured, I'll try to continue being a help. There's probably a lot of you out there that are on a similar journey as I am. And so why not just put myself out there? Because number one reason is I've learned a lot from the YouTube community. And so why not just pass it along? So hopefully this will continue to be a community where we can learn from one another. I think we've done a really good job doing that. And so I'm super grateful for a lot of you guys out there in the YouTube community that are allowing us to get a peek into your life and your story. And so I wanted to kind of bring you in on my life and my story as well. So it is late July and August is right around the corner, and I realized that the end of August of 2018 is when I first started roasting coffee. I fell in love with coffee in 2012. Now I had drank coffee long before that, way back in college, just to kind of get through long nights of reading, staying up, just needed the caffeine. Well, it wasn't until 2012 when I had my first cup of specialty coffee. My friend encouraged me, just try it black. Don't add any cream or sugar. And I'm like, no way is it gonna taste good. Well, it was interesting. It was made, this cup of coffee was hand ground, made from an AeroPress. I don't even remember the region. It was probably an African country. First sip I took, I can still remember it. It was 8 years ago, but it was like a mouthful of flavors. It was an explosion of flavors that I had never experienced before. And I don't even think I had words for it. I was just like, wow. And from that day on, I was on a journey to duplicate that if I could every day, because I wanted that. I needed coffee anyway for the morning routine, but why drink bad coffee? And so in 2012, I began a journey, and here it is 8 years later, and I'm 2 years into roasting coffee. And I really just want to share my love of coffee with the community. And it's turned out into, well, the evolution really is, I love coffee. Started home roasting in my garage on a Bmore 1600. See if I can find a picture and throw it up there, but it looks like a glorified easy bake oven. That's basically what it is. You can roast up to 1 pound batches. I only did, I think, half-pound batches. And I found, thanks to YouTube, a video of a guy who didn't just do the plug and play. I think there's like 5 presettings, like P1 through P5. But he said, hey, you need to preheat, put the beans in there, follow this, and you'll get these African coffees to taste really juicy. Did my research thanks to YouTube, and figured out how to roast coffee in my garage that actually tasted pretty good. And I remember I got help from a buddy that day, and we were like, let's just try this African bean. We were really into, I think, Ethiopian naturals. It's probably what I had back in 2012 because of the flavor explosion. We ordered coffee from a website called Happy Mug Coffee. Great guys up there. I've talked to them a few times. Definitely know what they're doing. They have some good coffees at good prices. So that's where I started. And I think I got like a pound or 5 pounds of this Ethiopian natural from Herrera. And I followed this guy's recipe, roasting recipe, and it actually didn't taste terrible. And we kind of looked at each other, after a couple days, we're like, I might be onto something. And the journey kind of began from there. I would just keep ordering different coffees. And really, I just gave it away. And eventually people were like, hey, let me pay you to roast some coffee. Or, can I get some coffee? Can I pay you for these beans? And I was like, that would be nice, but I really want to make sure that I'm doing this properly. I really want to make sure that it doesn't stink and you guys are regretting that you gave me your money. The fact that my friends and my family were like, hey, you know, this is pretty good, keep doing it, I'll give you some money for it, was like, huh, okay, this could be kind of like a side hustle. And so I really did my research, YouTube community. I found out about a guy named Scott Rao. I apologize, Scott, you'll probably never see this, but I felt compelled to say, I'm sorry. I don't know if it's Rao or Rao, but apparently he's really super smart. He wrote some books on roasting. This is the first book that I got, The Coffee Roaster's Companion. So if you're serious about roasting coffee, get this book, read it. I read it cover to cover in a matter of weeks. And it's just super informative. It's definitely worth keeping on your shelf. So that was August of 2018. The requests kept coming in like, hey, can I get a pound of coffee or can I get like a batch of coffee? I found out these guys up in Minneapolis, Mill City Roasters, and they put out a lot of free content on roasting. And I was like, how in the world are you putting out so much content? Because back then, 2 years ago, I was just naive and I'm like, aren't you giving away secrets? You know, don't you know that competitors are out there watching? And that's the really neat thing about the coffee community, is what I've found is that we want to help each other because it helps us out in the end. The specialty coffee industry is such a small slice of the big coffee community that as we help each other out, we're helping ourselves. You know, there's not like this stinginess we're trying to keep roasting secrets. You have probably found this video and you're just starting roasting coffee. You are learning just like we did. There's a lot of information out there, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, these guys at Mill City, not only do they have a huge amount of videos on YouTube for coffee roasting education, they also, I don't think they manufacture the roasters, but they work with a manufacturer in China, and they receive these roasters and they really equip them so that they can put the bells and whistles and make them really nice roasters. And so I was like, man, I want one of those roasters one day. Not only are they making nice quality products, but they're also teaching you how to roast on them. And it was just like amazing to find that. So Scott Rao, Mill City Roasters, the YouTube community. I mean, even on Reddit, there's so much help because I think there's so many people who are finding out about coffee roasting and it's becoming accessible to them. Even Sweet Maria's. Not only do they have a great education wing, they also have fantastic coffees that I've purchased from them. So after I began home roasting in my garage, I'm like, well, I kind of need bags and maybe a label. And I was like, well, what am I gonna label this coffee or call it? My last name is Derby. It's unique. I know that there's not a lot of surnames that are Derby out there. Growing up, we did a lot of camping, which would require my dad to have a CB radio, and he had this nickname, Top Hat. So they would call my dad Top Hat. And so from then, at an early age, I learned that, hey, the Derby is actually a hat, an ancient, not ancient hat, but an old hat that they would wear in England. And they would even pronounce Derby, Darby, even though it's D-E-R-B-Y. And so I learned a lot about that, but I'm like, you know what, I'll just call it Derby Coffee Roasters. And I've always struggled to think like, well, if I really want to make a name for myself, you know, is it wise using my last name? But 2 years in and I'm still using it. And I'll show you just what I came up with. I started ordering bags on Amazon. These are 1 pound bags. And I knew I wanted the valve on the outside. Let's see if you can get a look at that. The neat thing about that is they have this little Ziploc thing that I didn't even have to seal this. All I did was roast up the beans, throw them in there, get the air out, tighten this thing up right here. And what I learned about the valve is after you roast coffee, it has gone through a chemical change, you know, from having a certain percentage of moisture in it to no moisture, and it's releasing continuously carbon dioxide. What I'm learning is that after you roast the coffee, it takes 5 days maybe for coffee to degas or give off carbon dioxide. And so it needs a place to go. And so one of the cool things about having bags with valves in it is that you put the beans in the bag, you seal it up, make sure there's no air in there, and carbon dioxide can get out of this one-way valve and oxygen cannot get in. Oxygen hurts coffee over time. It oxidizes and it becomes not stale, but not fresh. If you know that you're making a pour over coffee and you see like these gases pour out, that's the bloom, that's releasing carbon dioxide. That's lets you know that you have fresh coffee. So anyway, got these bags, bought them on Amazon. They weren't the best prices because you could get them like 50 in a pack. But it was really all, I didn't want to spend a whole lot of money on, you know, a case of 1,000 bags at that time. And I didn't want to just write on the bags. So I went, I think on Etsy, and found someone who was making these rubber stamps and had them do this label right here, Derby Coffee Roasters. And a friend of mine told me about a website or an app called Fiverr, Fiverr. The deal is you go on there and there's a lot of creative people that will almost like bid on your work or put themselves out there, say, hey, I can do this graphic design for $5, $10, whatever. And so I found someone based on like their previous work, and I said, here's what I want. And that's what they came up with, Derby Coffee Roasters. And I wanted to be able to put the date on there that I roasted. So I went on Amazon and got this little stamp so that I could roast. Now this was last year in September 20th, 2019. And so that's what I started. I was roasting on a Beemore in my garage, half-pound batches, and it took like, I don't know, 15 minutes. And I would literally be out there with a box fan trying to cool off the beans because it didn't have a built-in feature to cool the beans. And that's what I started with. And I learned a lot about roasting coffee between reading this book, browsing the internet. I mean, I spent hours on YouTube. And there's another guy that I found, shout out to Tyler Herrera with Tired Eyes Coffee. I found his videos because he was using a Mill City, I think 1 kilogram roaster, doing it in his parents' garage. And he was kind of doing the same thing I'm doing, talking about his journey. And he launched a coffee, and I think last year opened a shop in San Diego. Tyler, I've spoken to him on the phone. He's been a huge help in the community. And so really, that's what I wanted to do with this story, a 2-year-old journey that's turned into a company, and started from my garage. Tyler started from his shed in his parents' background or backyard in San Diego. So we're all in this together. Having roasted on the Beemore, if any of you have roasted on the Beemore before, you know it's time consuming. You can't turn around roast once you cool and then put in another roast because it has to cool down. You can't do it very quickly. So it became time consuming, and the demand was picking up, and people were like, hey, I want some more coffee. And I was spending more time away from my family. I'm married, I have 4 kids ranging from 12 to 2. Even though I was passionate about coffee roasting, I didn't want to hurt my family. I didn't want to make my wife mad at me because it wasn't worth it. I do love coffee, but I'm not willing to sacrifice my family for that. So some friends had some ideas. They're like, hey, we want to help you upgrade your machine. We're going to give you some money. We don't want anything in return. We want to see you be able to get a machine that's going to help you grow this business. So fast forward from August 2018 to April 2019, I purchased another machine called the Quality Fortis, which if you've seen the other video, you know what that looks like. And it has a 600 gram capacity, which is above a pound. A pound is 454 grams. But you have to take into consideration through the roasting process, you're losing weight. So if you put in exact a pound 454, you're not gonna output a pound. It's gonna be less, probably anywhere from 10 to 15% less, just because of moisture loss, density loss. And so anyway, I wanted to be able to roast 1 pound at a time and turn that around quickly. And it was either that machine or the Huki 500, which is a 500 gram capacity. And so the Quality Fortis, in my opinion, is built a little more substantial. The metal is more thick, and you could get this cooler, this fan. Anyway, so I raised up this money. My friends were so generous, and they wanted to see me pursue my dreams and my passion and do this. And so on April 2019, last year, I purchased this machine off eBay, and then within a week it came to my house and started just geeking out on that. I think I was still using these bags at the time, really just taking Fridays and Saturdays to bust out a whole bunch of coffee. I think I even was using like Venmo for people to pay me, even cash, write checks. However I could receive the money, I was trying to make it easy for the community to be able to pay me.